And it's finally time for our main event of the evening. Matt, you could call this UFC 2 Figgy 5, as we have Deiveson Figueiredo, Deus Da Guerra taking on Alex Perez. Matt, it's a good fight. It's a really interesting fight, and Alex Perez kind of falling into the shot, because originally it was supposed to be Deiveson Figueiredo taking on your former bantamweight champ, Cody Garbrandt. Garbrandt out of the fight. Moreno, Perez, that falls out. Alex Perez gets the title shot. And of course, we have Brandon Moreno lower down on this card, taking on Brandon Royval in a fight that could very well be a fight of the night. So if you haven't checked that video out, please do. But overall, this is a great pairing. I mean, Deiveson Figueiredo, since the loss to GCA Formiga, who, oh, by the way, Alex Perez just beat, has gone on a 4-fight heater. And for Figueiredo, we talk about these wins. Pantoja, Tim Elliott, Joseph Benavidez, one for the title where he missed weight, one for the title where he made weight.
One for the money, two for the show.
Finished them both. And for Alex Perez, in his last 5 fights, I mean, he has the lone blemish to Joseph Benavidez, but the other wins, the John Moraga win was a big one. Jose Torres, I mean, John Moraga was even before. Jose Torres, Mark De La Rosa, Jordan Espinoza, and Jussier Formiga to get into this shot. Really interesting fights. Both of these guys have finishing potential. I know that's something that people are going to spit out at you a lot. But Matt, since the flyweight purge of a couple of years ago, this division is absolutely in fuego.
It's a phenomenal division. And yes, it sucks that they had to cut so many fighters. The good thing about it is, though, only the super elite are left. And I know that is kind of unfortunate to anyone who got cut, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. But let's be honest, like, the worst elite guy right now is probably Alejandro Pantoja, and he is an absolute monster. And that's the great fight for Deiveson that he had on his way to the title that I do think is going to... Not that Alex Perez fights entirely like Pantoja, but I do think we can take a lot from that fight. Because Pantoja, what do we know? He's phenomenal on the ground. He's got really good submissions. But on the feet, he has power. And he's one of the few guys who, at 125, can match some of the power that Deiveson Figueiredo brings. And he couldn't even do anything to Figueiredo. Like, Figueiredo's chin... I always think that, and it's always something that I have in my mind, where when you have a big guy who just is blowing the doors off everyone, you always kind of wonder in the back of your head, well, what's their durability like? You know, like, what happens when they're on the receiving end of those big shots? And that was something I was worried about with Figueiredo, because when every single one of your fight, other than the Jared Brooks fight, of course, is you just dominating your opponent, outstriking them, and having that certain swagger that Deiveson Figueiredo has, because he does carry himself in a certain way that it's not cocky. You can just tell that, like, he's very... He's in tune with his abilities.
He's the Dos Equis guy of MMA, because this guy's a sushi chef, he cuts hair, and he's also a champion of a division.
100%, and he's very good at all three, from what the UFC countdown shows tell us. The sushi look beautiful.
They're not going to tell you he's a terrible sushi chef. Could you imagine?
They're like, yeah, no, we had to kick him out. But no, Alex Perez does have a few things in his game that will give Figueiredo problems. Of course, phenomenal wrestler, really good grappler. He has been kind of caught in weird positions, on the ground himself. The Joseph Benavidez fight is a weird one, and I don't bring that up because I know what people are going to say. Oh, well, MMA math doesn't work. Just because Figueiredo beat Benavidez and Benavidez knocked out Perez, that doesn't mean that Figueiredo is going to knock out Perez. And I agree with you. The fact, though, that Joseph Benavidez, who I wouldn't say is an exceptionally hard puncher, I think he's a very good striker. I think if he lands clean shots, he can put you away. Check both Jussier Formiga fights for that. But Alex Perez basically got finished twice in the first round by Joseph Benavidez. And again, Benavidez has speed, he has good power. But that's a bad sign when you're about to fight Deiveson Figueiredo, who, yes, his cardio isn't as good as Joseph Benavidez. His power is so much more through the roof. It's not even... Like, I don't think people understand. Deiveson Figueiredo, he doesn't have, like, Francis Ngannou power, but it's close for flyweight. Like, when he lands clean shots... when he lands on your glove, it makes that big, like, fat noise. And then when he lands on your chin, you go down. It's not a lot of Deiveson Figueiredo throwing out touchers and feelers and then landing that big bomb. He walks very upright. He has a very upright stance. And I do think a little bit of that, just side note, is to bait takedowns, because Deiveson Figueiredo's guillotine is phenomenal. Check the Tim Elliott fight for that. I know Tim Elliott's been submitted before, but just the way in which he was able to pull it off. Tim Elliott shoots for a takedown quick. Deiveson Figueiredo locks up that neck like Brian Ortega and is able to submit him. So although Perez has the more grappling-centric game, Deiveson Figueiredo is more than game on the ground.
Here's something I'm really interested in, because for Alex Perez at this point, you're 28 years old, you have 29 professional fights, and you talked about it, the grappling, the wrestling, it is very good. He beat Jordan Espinoza, who's a good wrestler in his own right. This is a talking point, and it has to be a talking point. I know it's not just going to be one for us, it's going to be one for everyone. But you look at the fight that Deiveson Figueiredo did have against Jussier Formiga. He lost that fight soundly, 30-27. Matt, I remember before the first Joseph Benavidez fight, apparently Matt's a clairvoyant at points.
Every now and then.
And he talked about the fact that the weight cut for Deiveson Figueiredo is an issue. And it was, because he wasn't able to win the belt clearly in his first fight. They ran it back. Didn't really seem like cutting weight, or didn't really seem like making the weight was as big of an issue. But man, it's still a question mark. If it's a question mark 5 fights ago, if it's a question mark 2 fights ago, it's a question mark in this one.
100%. And if you go back and look at that story in the Formiga fight, Deiveson claims that he cut almost 40 pounds. That tells you how big this guy is and how hard he must hit. Like,
he's eating a lot of sushi.
He is eating a lot of sushi. I mean, I don't blame him. It's
he's goofing with a guy that looks just like Bruno Silva on the beach on the countdown.
He is
weird.
And
Bruno, if that is Bruno Silva, and you know what, I'm this far into it, I need to do more research. But if it's 185-pound Bruno Silva and Deiveson Figueiredo is just picking him up, having fun, and having a time, as all the people in town are watching them goof on the beach, it's like watching the montage between Rocky and Apollo Creed, except there's no cool music.
Just good fun.
Just 2 guys wrestling on the beach, except one guy's like 3 times as big as the other. Continue.
Okay, so Deiveson Figueiredo cut about 40 pounds that week, and he said that was the reason that really drained on his weight. Now, I understand, or drained on his cardio, excuse me. I understand that. That is a solid excuse, if you will. You're still the one who decided to get up to that weight and decide to do such a drastic weight cut. Like, I love how people always try to point to things outside of the fight itself that are still the fighter's responsibility. Now, again, you guys can probably tell we're 6.5 minutes into this, leaning quite hard Deiveson Figueiredo in this fight. But the weight is such a big question mark. And again, I did it once, so I can never really do it again. But I'm not going to say Deiveson Figueiredo is going to miss weight in this. I do think his first title defense means a lot to him. I think the fact that he is the main event of a pay-per-view, his first headlining gig, and I'm sure he knows that if he goes out there and knocks out Alex Perez in impressive fashion, he might not get another headlining gig on a pay-per-view, but there's more than likely, a co-main event to a big title fight or something along those lines. Like, I do think Deiveson Figueiredo does understand that, okay, now that I'm champ, I do have to get my shit together, for lack of a better term, because he knows that he comes from very humble beginnings. He will let you know himself in those countdown videos, and this can all go pretty fast. Tyron Woodley said it himself after he lost the belt. Tyron Woodley, direct quote, "I blew a lot of damn money." It happens. You get involved in the lifestyle, it can happen. But I do think Figueiredo, if he does kind of get, I say the personal side, but when I say that, I mean much more, the weight cutting and sort of the self-care aspect of MMA down. I think he's going to be champ for a long time at 125. And that's saying something when it's a division that is so talent-stacked right now.
And I mean, Matt, for Alex Perez, great opportunity here. Coming out of a good camp with Team Oyama, I think having a guy to train with, and it sucks that his fight fell out last weekend due to the weight cut. But Louis Smolka, a guy like that to train for a fight like this, I think that's a perfect training partner to have to get ready for it. And I mean, Matt, if we have a look at the odds here, I was a little bit surprised with them because Alex Perez opened up as a plus 180 underdog. That line shot up pretty quick. He's now at a plus 246 for Deiveson Figueiredo making that first title defense, first official. Open minus 210. Now he's at a minus 312. That line has moved at about a 32% clip towards Deiveson Figueiredo. If we look at the Tapology votes, Matt, at a 520 total votes, 94% Figueiredo, 78% predicting a knockout win for Deiveson Figueiredo. What I've seen twice in a row, could I see it 3 times in a row? I don't know. What do you think?
Deiveson Figueiredo is going to win this fight, whether it be on the feet, whether it be on the ground. Again, I think so high of Joseph Benavidez. I really do, because he doesn't have a weakness in his game. He's a great wrestler. He's a great striker. He's super fast. He can react to things well. And Deiveson Figueiredo not only outstruck him, he kind of out-techniqued him. When you watch what Figueiredo is able to do with some of his longer range attacks, he delays his punches. And it's something that not a lot of people do, but he'll throw like 100% speed, and then he'll kind of feint. But he won't feint. He'll just throw a punch a little bit slower. But they all land. And we know the power that he possesses. He has it in both hands. He has it in both feet. He's extremely explosive in this division. And like you mentioned, one of the bigger guys in this division maybe doesn't really belong in this division. But at the end of the day, Deiveson Figueiredo is hard to pick against. Lights out on the ground, lights out on the feet. He does get tired, but I don't know if Alex Perez is the guy who's going to be able to take advantage of that.
If Figueiredo gets tired, if the weight cut is a huge issue, you have a guy that can grapple and grapple to no end in Alex Perez. And there's definitely a method of victory for Alex Perez. If he can outlast Deiveson Figueiredo, and if the weight cut is an issue, look at what Jussier Formiga did. Again, MMA math doesn't work that way, but there's certainly a path for Alex Perez, more so than maybe those votes, and the odds really do show you. I was kind of surprised that at open, it's minus 210 for the champ, plus 180 for the challenger. But again, I will definitely side with Deiveson Figueiredo on this one. The guy's power is off the charts. His submission abilities are great. And if that is truly Bruno Silva, you let me know, Bruno. You tell me, because you're supposed to be in the UFC, you goofball. And you goofed on it. And I was looking forward to that. But overall, I think this fight should be great. I'm siding with the champ, Matt. We both have Deiveson Figueiredo to get the win. 2 title fights. Shevchenko, Maia. Figueiredo, Perez. And we have a great card full of great fights. If anything falls out, if anything changes, you keep locked in with Fight Night Picks, and you have to check out Question Mark Kicks on Saturday, where we get a final say. Maybe Figueiredo's weight cut goes bad and we change our pick. We have the opportunity to do so. We get to hang out with you in the chat, and you can support the channel there, and you can check out some of the merch on the site, fightnightpicks.net. So Matt, as we always say, with Fight Night Picks,
let's get into it.